All right, welcome to another episode of the New American Town podcast. Pretty excited because we're in Haxton Road Studios down Bentonville, Arkansas, down on the square. My name's Nat Ross. I am with the Visit Bentonville community here. I've been doing some podcasts, and today we're really lucky. It is the mountain bike capital of the world, and we've got two very special guests that are professional mountain bikers and cyclists. Very excited to have them in town. So our special guests today are Ryan Petry and Alexey Vermeulen. Welcome to town, guys. You guys are both pros. You're been riding the trails the past couple days. Very excited to have you. So I guess to start off, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into cycling, mountain biking specifically. Let's go from there.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Petry. I am 29 years old. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and my a little bit about me, how I got into this sport. Grew up in Michigan and just ran. I was a runner and ended up getting introduced to triathlon at the end of sort of my track and cross country career in high school, and just ran with that. Went to Arizona State University and did triathlon pretty competitively, and then got introduced to mountain biking through one of my friends out there. And I just fell in love with it and was riding mountain bikes more and more, even though I was training for on-road triathlons. And eventually I was like, man, I gotta just do this Xterra thing. So I started doing Xterra and, did that and worked my way up to being a professional in that, and was pretty competitive in the collegiate scene on the road. And then I moved out to Boulder in 2014 when I graduated. I'd been out there a few times in the summers before, and I just absolutely loved those mountains and the training and just the exploring. So I ended up kind of needing to work little part-time jobs, and I realized that triathlon made that hard. So I picked one sport, and I loved the bike. So started doing races, like the Leadville 100 and longer things like that. And I've somehow made it work through the years, the last probably 6 or 7 years. And now I'm married and I have a house and I'm still getting to ride my bike. So it's a fun, it's a fun life. And then you're out here, in Bentonville exploring, riding, and you just wonder, how did I get so lucky? And I'm just glad that, I have these opportunities.
Well, welcome, Ryan. We're going to learn a little bit more about you next. But Alexey, you come with some global perspective as well here. So fill us in on how you got into cycling, how you became a professional mountain biker, and your just cycling background in general.
I got into sport through the roadside. I think like a lot of us, the bike for me was very much freedom in the beginning. Lived way out in the country in Michigan, and it's kind of interesting that Ryan and I are from the same state.
On the mitten, somewhere in the mitten.
Exactly. No, you do it backwards though. There you go. But yeah, I grew up on the road and kind of just followed that pathway. It just kind of kept growing for me. I started racing local races, and then my parents saw, hey, he actually likes this, so we'll push him a little bit, and I enjoyed it, and eventually raced in Europe starting when I was about 16 years old until about 2 years ago when I was 24. And just kind of, people are going to laugh at this, but thought mountain biking was more fun. And I was like, how can I do more of that? And so I started racing the local race for me in Michigan was Iceman Cometh, and just kind of found my way to mountain bikes and kind of started talking to people and enjoying riding bikes for the reason that I started. So.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that you guys are in Bentonville, and I think the community is too. You guys kind of showed up at a great time. So starting off, what was your first experience in Bentonville on the trails?
Yeah, so we got in late. So the first night was just walk around, grab a bite to eat. And then the next morning, we went out with Amy, your wife, and we just sort of explored some of the stuff here. We were I think both a little jet lagged. So we just explored, tried to avoid, most of the trails were holding up really well, even after the rain. So just did some stuff close by. And we also went to the Crystal Bridges Museum in our bike gear, in our clothes, and we had mud all over us. It was quite the experience, but just, I had been here in 2018 for the initial Oz Trails. And since then, it's like, I best described it as like, it's like this Disney World for cyclists and mountain bikers with the way everything's set up and the incredible trailheads and the map system. I'm like, you almost need to like line up here. Okay, now you get your ticket to ride. Like it's unlike anything I had ever seen. It was so cool.
I love it. And then Alexey, like the community here is fairly welcoming, and I know you're also, both of you guys ride gravel, quite a bit of gravel too, so can't wait to share that experience with you coming up next. But how welcoming is this community for a cycling community, or just welcoming you guys into the area?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of incredible. I mean, even from people who aren't riding bikes, you know, you stop at a car or stop at a 4-way stop, and it's like, no, you go. But it's just kind of cool to see. I mean, whether people are getting out after work or getting out before work or getting out in the middle of the day, that's kind of that connectivity in Bentonville is just awesome. Like in Michigan or in Colorado, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go ride. I'm a professional. I have all day in the middle. But here you have lunch. You can be on a trail in 5 minutes. You can get a lunch ride in. And I think that's like, it's just been really cool to see everybody just enjoy the bike, whether you are a beginner or someone more experienced.
Love it. And I know both of you guys have got a really big project going on this summer. So as your, let's say, stewardship to the cycling community, you're giving back. So you guys have a project, and maybe you can kind of start from the beginning a little bit for our audience, of the initial conception of the idea to now what you guys are going to be doing this summer, that where you put out to the general cycling community. They could be mentored, guided by you, coached by you, get to race Leadville 100 and go through this is the Leadville 100 trail race for those of you out there following the endurance side of mountain biking. But these two have put together quite the opportunity, and it will be documented as well. So I guess just pipe in, however, fill us in on the beginnings to what's coming up.
Yeah, I'll kind of start off. You know, Alexey and I just met last year, basically. Had seen each other a couple races prior to that, and he moved out to Boulder, and I'm always looking for riding partners, people that can get out in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, and so we just linked up that way, and we ended up doing this big adventure. We rode to Crested Butte over all these big mountain passes, and just had a lot of time to talk.
A lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of time. And we just were talking about the, you know, state of the industry, and with COVID and kind of all these opportunities. There's not always, you know, something like a pandemic can be, it sucks in so many ways, but there's a lot of opportunities that can come from it. And one of those was, wow, there's so many new cyclists entering the sport, whether they're forced into it basically because they have nothing else to do. But either way, that was an opportunity. And we just said, you know what happens when things go slightly back to normal? Like, what happens to all these new riders? And we realized that it's just such an intimidating sport. It's hard to get into. There's a lot of questions. Where do I ride? What do I wear? How do I do this on my bike? How do I do the technical things if you're getting into mountain biking, route planning, endless. And there just wasn't a lot out there for these riders. You know, a lot of the content we see is a bit more high level of, you know, people ripping trails, and it's not really relatable. And I don't know if it's getting people off the couch. So we just said, how do we get more people and do something that's relatable and really focus on that education piece to lower that intimidation, and so that people can see something and go, well, maybe, you know, I could do more with this sport. And if you do more with the sport and you get past that initial curve, then you fall in love with it. You end up taking on your first little event, or you do some big cool ride, and that is when you're hooked. And that's when things go back to normal. You are a cyclist and your bike doesn't sit there collecting dust. So that was essentially, we said, well, what if we kind of show, as much as Alexey and I want to be relatable, we're two professional athletes and we have a lot of time to train, and we, you know, so we said, well, what if we show relatable people that are just getting into the sport, and really stretch this. And how do we stretch and show and have them do the hardest thing possible so that anybody watching these three can go, well, I might not be able to do that, but maybe I could do something. And showing that education along the way. So that is where the Leadville 100 came in. And that's where the idea was born.
Okay. So these three athletes, when they finish, like your biggest reward will probably be watching them finish and getting them to that point.
Yeah, it's so pretty much in three sentences, the goal is to take three people who found the bike during COVID or during, their gym closed or they needed mental sanity from their family, and like follow that process of something that could be deemed impossible 6 months ago.
Sure.
And hopefully with that journey, you're creating something that's relatable. And someone said, oh, well, I have a family, I have a job, but wow, like Roberta, one of our three, is working her job as an ER nurse and also training 5, 6, 7 hours a week, and figuring out how to take on something like Leadville Trail 100. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, success is, we'd all love them to finish, but success is whatever they deem success when they get out there.
Good point.
But really, we all know, like, to take on a race like Leadville with 6 months of training, like before this, they were commuting, they were enjoying the bike for what it is, what we all start with. And they got that bug, but yeah, the reality is Leadville doesn't go below 10,000 feet in elevation and only climbs up for a little while. So, it'll be fun. And I think it's been really cool to see everybody gather around and it was really hard, and we can kind of go into a little more or less, but like, it's really hard to pick three people who are going to be cohesive together because you want them to encourage each other. It's not just Ryan and I, hey, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. But cycling, when you get into that community that's been missing during COVID, is like, there's group rides, there's people who are helping you. Oh, you're in the same situation. I also put my chamois on backwards or put underwear underneath my shorts or anything else.
Absolutely.
And so if they all finish, that's spectacular. But if they all make it halfway and are still smiling, that's also great. I mean, if one's crying, it's okay. Someone has to have a couple tears.
It's got to be
for the reality TV part of it,
Yeah, the experience. So where does someone follow this project as it's documented, filmed, and?
So it's called From the Ground Up. Is the name of the project. It's on Instagram. There's a website, fromthegroundup.bike. The first episode will come out toward the end of June, and then every 2 weeks for 6 episodes all the way through Leadville. And those will be on YouTube and on Outside TV. So hopefully we haven't seen the first episode yet, but we're hoping it's something that we can be proud of and that people are inspired, encouraged, and set their own goals by.
Looking forward to it. So for everybody listening right now, we're on visitbentonville.com. You can check up with all of this stuff. But for you two, where can we follow you guys in addition to this project, like your personal, just day-to-day, like through Instagram or?
Instagram is probably the best way to see what I'm up to.
Okay.
It handles at Petry, or Ryan, but just RY. And I like to post some fun stories. I'm a big story guy. The hard posts are they're harder for me, but the stories, I'm a big fan.
Excellent. Alexey, how do we follow your progress as well?
Just my name. It's a little more unique than Ryan, so it's just Alexey Vermeulen, at Alexey Vermeulen for everything, pretty much. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to all the documented pieces that go into this. You guys also looking forward to riding with you here in the Bentonville trails, all of the Oz Trails when you're here racing, as well as just some free riding and checking out the trails. You can follow us on Visit Bentonville and Bike Bentonville, again on Facebook or Instagram. Also YouTube and LinkedIn. So many exciting things in the mountain bike capital of the world this year. I'd like to welcome these two to trails. So wave at them, chase them down if you can, if you see them on the trails. But welcome all, and thanks for visiting with us and telling us about your upcoming projects.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. That's it for New American Town podcast. We'll see you soon. Signing out.